This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Jeff Parles, Sports by the Book, will join us. We will go over a wild weekend, NFL, college football, and we will discuss maybe some Soto stuff with him, see if he is confident his Mets are going to get Soto, as there's whispers now that Soto is now following some certain Mets players and owners, family members on Instagram, which doesn't mean he's going to the Mets, but would make you nervous. But we start with football and a crazy day on Saturday with the college. I almost was hoping for a pretty quiet day Sunday in the NFL, just so I could go through it quickly and get onto college, because it is a mess in terms of who's in, who's out. Ole Miss loses. Bama gets smoked by Oklahoma. Indiana loses, but I think clinches a spot in the field because they're going to only have one loss. They're going to beat Purdue, and all these other teams knocking each other off. So fascinating, a lot of moving parts. We'll start with the NFL in what was kind of a ho-hum 4 o'clock slate. San Francisco without Purdy got buried. All the people that think, hey, you can basically put anybody at quarterback for San Francisco and it'll be fine. Not so fast. They got buried, absolutely buried in Green Bay. They are done. Their season's over. Denver wins against the Raiders. That game wasn't very exciting. Raiders with a chance to cover at the end. I don't know what they were doing. They somehow took a sack and ran out of time. And the other game, Arizona, Seattle, bad loss for Arizona. They didn't show up. Seattle wins a home game. They now have control over the division based on what happens here with this Rams-Eagle game, which is being recorded right now, which is playing right now. So kind of an uneventful 4 o'clock slate, as what usually happens, especially when you only have 3 games. Just look, there's not that many games to choose from. If one of them is bad, you just kind of hope 1 or 2 of them are good. But the 1 o'clock window, that 3:30 to 4:30 time period, called they call it the witching hour. I know Francesco always, he says he invented the witching hour, at least the phrase, when you have the early games ending. And that's a time, if you're an NFL fan, that's just the best time of the day. It's the best time of the week. This 3:30 to 4:30 slate on Sunday was incredible. Chiefs Panthers was awesome. One of the crazier games you'll see, 2 of the craziest games all year, Vikings Bears and Cowboys Commanders, where that just such a strange game, so low scoring between the Cowboys and the Commanders. And Washington down 7. They get the miracle touchdown from McLaurin, missed the extra point, which anybody that's old enough to remember, it's kind of an obscure game, but there was a similar game in 2003 where it was New Orleans, Jacksonville. New Orleans was down 7 with a few seconds left. They throw a pass, a few laterals, end up scoring a touchdown, but missed an extra point, an old school extra point, which is basically, a 15, 16-yard field goal, wherever it was. Same thing happens here. McLaurin with an 84-yard miracle touchdown in the final seconds, but then they missed the extra point, and then they onside it. That gets returned for a touchdown. This is all after a ridiculous return touchdown by the Cowboys. The guy for Dallas should have just gone down and not given Washington the ball back with an 8-point game. And then Minnesota was crazy, where they're up 14. They gave up a touchdown, I think, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Bears go for 2, don't get it. Minnesota drives. This was all in the fourth quarter. Minnesota drives, puts the game away with the field goal. They've got like 4th and 1, a couple minutes left. They can either go for it or kick. It's a chip shot field goal, so just kick the field goal, go up by 11, game's over, except they gave up a touchdown, a 2-point conversion. Okay, no big deal. There's like 25 seconds left, 21 seconds left. Nobody's recovered an onside kick all year until now. The guy for the Vikings gets in the way. It didn't even go 10 yards yet. Hits off his foot. Bears recover. Williams throws a laser. First down. Kick a field goal. Go to overtime. Bears actually win the toss, but they go 3 and out, and give the Vikings credit. This was a gutty win to choke the game away. And if you're a Viking fan, you've seen a million games like this. You know how it's going to end. You know the Bears are going to win, except they don't. Vikings defense steps up. They get a sack, couple negative plays. They get the ball back. They have a nice drive, couple third downs along the way, and they kick a field goal and they win the game. So Minnesota's got a quiet 9-2. It looks like it's going to result in them just being a very decorated wild card, because Detroit just never seems to lose. They never seem to be flat. They just never have a flat spot. They absolutely maul everybody. I know people I respect thought it was too many points against the Colts. Today, it wasn't, after they gave up the opening drive for a field goal, bogged down in the red zone. It was all Detroit from there. So a fun day. The 1 o'clock games were a lot of fun. Houston, I think, is a big theme. And I talked about, I like the Titans on Sunday, and they didn't make it easy. After being up 10, you look up and they throw a pick six. They're down one. Houston's got the ball. And you say, oh, man, here we go again with the Titans. But Houston is a complete fraud. Houston got outgained at one point in this game, 390 to 188 at home to the Titans. This is a team a lot of people thought maybe a Super Bowl contender coming into the year. They are not that. They are maybe, look, because they'll probably win the division if you get a home game. Maybe same thing as last year where you get a soft opponent at home and maybe you can win a game. Anything other than that, I'd be shocked if they make any sort of run. They are just not that good a team. Stroud has not played that well. They are a major disappointment, and they are in no way a contender. That is a team that's kind of flying under the radar. They're not a big market. Everyone kind of likes Stroud. They're not on the standalone windows a lot. They were against Detroit a couple weeks, but I guess they were against Dallas last week where they won, but they have quietly just not been very good. So that's one takeaway. And even though they won, Kansas City's defense in a 30-27 game, you have 27 points to Bryce Young. I know Young's played better, and good for him. He looks at least like an NFL quarterback now, and not that, not one you pick first overall, not one you trade up to pick first overall, but at least like he's serviceable maybe, and he can have a career. The Chiefs defense is really bad. And with them, their offense not being the same, Kelsey's not the same player. Worthy gives them a little juice, but it's kind of a dink and dunk offense. I know they scored 30 points today, but they are bad against the pass. They just don't have a lot of good corner play. I know some of their corners are hurt. So Kansas City's defense would be alarming. You can never say you'd be shocked if Kansas City won the Super Bowl. They have Mahomes. They've got a good defensive coordinator, good offensive coach. Their lack of firepower on offense combined with their shaky pass defense might put them in a position where I'd actually be a little bit surprised if they did win the Super Bowl. Now, we all would have thought the same thing last year when they lost to the Raiders on Christmas, and they've only lost one game since. So you can never count out Mahomes. I'm not counting him out, but that's at least something that, again, that's something to keep an eye on where they might be getting the benefit of doubt just because of their record, just because of Mahomes, just because of what they've done in the past. I'd be a little concerned if I'm Kansas City about that defense. So fun day. I mean, the combination of the Vikings-Bears game and the Commanders-Cowboys game, some of these other games, DeVito was awful for the Giants. Boy, if you're Dable, you better have some sort of assurance that you're coming back, because I would not be playing that guy if my job was on the line, unless he wants to get fired, unless he's pulling a George Costanza, getting the strawberries on the uniform. They are so bad that Luck's got to be better than him. We know Jones was better than him. I understand they don't want to pay Jones in case he got hurt, but man, you cannot play DeVito if your goal is to win, if your goal is to keep your job. And again, maybe they have some sort of agreement. Hey, let's lose every game possible. This guy gives us the best chance of doing that, even though he won a few games for us last year. Let's just not throw Locke out there and win an extra game. Maybe let's try to pick at the top of the draft, although it's not a great quarterback class. And last year, if you didn't win those games, you could have had May or Daniels, and it's just hard to orchestrate losing. But I don't know what that situation is going to be, and that is going to be a doozy on Thanksgiving here in a few days. DeVito against Cooper Rush, assuming it's DeVito. DeVito did get banged up at the end of the game, but man, they are a train wreck to watch, are the Giants. So fun games. Like I said, Saturday in college was a lot of fun. Colorado loses their chance probably to go to a Big 12 title game. They're going to need a lot of help, but the big ones are the upsets. Alabama just smoked against Oklahoma. I would think they're going to be out, but if you look around, you're going to have a hard time getting to 12 teams, and whatever happens, it is not going to be clean, because you could say Oregon is in, Ohio State is in, Penn State's probably in, Indiana, even with a loss, I think they're going to be in. You can get to like 6 or 7 teams you feel pretty good about being in, but like, does Miami, SMU, does the loser of the ACC title game get back in the mix? Does a Clemson get back in the mix? Does South Carolina get back in the mix? Could you put Tulane in as like a second group of 5 team? Probably not, but there's probably going to be 1, if not 2, 3 lost teams in this field. And again, there's a lot of time left. And as we learned last week, you can try to play out these scenarios. It's not that easy to simulate what's going to happen and what you think is going to happen. It's going to be hard to get to 12 teams. Tennessee had a good day. They're probably going to be in as long as they beat Vandy. But man, there is a lot up in the air here with the college football as we head to the final week of the regular season, the week after that, which will be conference championship week. And then we get into the playoffs, which, again, I was against the 12-team playoff. 4 is plenty. We're just devaluing the regular season. I've totally done a 180. I love all these scenarios. I love the fact that, there's more ways to bet about it. And there's more ways to bet it. There's more ways to think about it. It's just better for content. Those games are going to be fun to watch. I mean, projecting ahead the bracket, if you put Indiana in and you have like an Indiana Notre Dame first round game, and that's just going to be a lot of fun. So a lot still to be determined in what was just a wild, wild weekend. College football, the 1:00 slate for the NFL was crazy. We'll keep our eye on the Soto sweepstakes again. I don't think that's going to wrap up anytime soon, but fun week. I've always loved this Thanksgiving week because You get college basketball on all day, all night, games starting literally like 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday. They go until past midnight on the East Coast. So it's wall to wall college basketball. All the NFL games on Thursday with Thanksgiving, the Black Friday games in college football on Friday. Again, college football, college basketball, all of those days. So if you like sports, man, there is something on all day, all night with all of these sports. So it's a fun week. It's a fun time of the year to, to just relax and, watch some sports. The Maui tournament will be fun. UConn's in that. It's a loaded field. So you get a feel for UConn this week. And I think this is a week a lot of people start to get into college basketball too, because people are home. This is the first, showcase event, the Maui tournament. I don't even know if they play in Maui anymore. I know there were some fires, and I know last year or the year before they played it somewhere else, but it's a great tournament. It's usually a great field. And again, it's just a fun week because you have so much sports on all the time, morning, day, night. Anytime you wake up or go to bed, you just flip the TV on and there's a game on somewhere. So a lot to do, a lot to discuss. The Monday night game here is a fun one. Ravens, Chargers, 2.5, 3, depending upon where you shop. I would lean towards the Chargers just because I don't I don't trust Tucker in the Ravens kicker here. I think the Chargers have a coach, a quarterback, a defense, an offensive line. I know the Ravens need the game, and hey, if you win this, you're probably in good shape here to probably get yourself back in a position where you're the favorite to win the AFC North. Uh, but I will take the points here with the Chargers. It's a lean. I don't know that I'm going to bet it. It's a good teaser leg at 2.5 up to 8.5. Be a lean towards the Chargers. Should be a lot of fun in what is a great sports week. So we'll see what Jeff Parles thinks about that. Everything else, the NFL, the college, Soto, a lot to discuss. That is next. This Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right. He is a fan favorite. You can catch him sports by the book. It is Jeff Parles. Jeff, thanks for coming on. We have a lot to get to. I was kind of hoping because there was so much in college football. I was kind of hoping for a quiet NFL day. Then we had that wild 1 o'clock slate. We are recording right now at halftime. I'll just leave the floor open to you. What is the most significant thing that happened in the NFL today?
What is the most significant thing? I'll go with one of the more boring games, actually, and then we can work our way into the insanity of the end of that 1 o'clock Eastern window. The San Francisco 49ers season is over. That's my biggest takeaway from today, where you look at them without Brock Purdy. Look, Brandon Allen's terrible. We already knew that. But the fact that this defense just is not the same. Now they're going to be on the field a ton while Purdy is out. I get it. And Chris Andrews brings this up, a sportsbook director at the South Point, brings this up on my show basically every single time he's on when we talk about the NFL, that more times than not, the Super Bowl loser has the huge regress the next year. And this Niner team is having a huge regress. And look, I know people on social media like to make mountains out of molehills, but I have to wonder if Kyle Shanahan actually is on the hot seat. I think it would be idiotic. I think it would be absurd if the Niners had a bad year where they had horrible injury luck, if they got rid of Shanahan. But look, you never know. But that was the biggest thing for me NFL wise today, that the Niners are done. And the NFC West is nuts at this point. Obviously, we don't know the result of Sunday night when we're recording this. But if the Rams were to come back and win this game, you have a three-way tie at the top between three teams that I all think are pretty solid, but also have monster flaws for all three of those teams. That could actually be the most fun playoff race down the stretch in the NFL, because let's face it, Will, the AFC playoffs are essentially set. It's just a matter of what order the 7 teams go in at this point. And for the NFC side, I mean, the 7th seed is the only wild card that really feels like is up for grabs, with Washington melting the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, don't disagree with any of that. My big takeaways, Texans, just look, we knew they weren't a contender, but they were thoroughly dominated by a really bad Titans team. And I'd actually look, I know it's Mahomes. Their defense is not the same. They can't defend the pass. They're not that explosive offensively. I know it's dangerous to bet against them, but I don't think the last 2 postseasons, they've won 7 playoff games. I don't think I've bet against them in any of them. I've been on either the Chiefs or nothing. I think I've been on them every time. Yes. I just don't. Part of it, I don't think the ball's going to bounce their way. Part of it's the defense. Part of it is the weapons. Now look, it's not a bold prediction to be like, oh, Chiefs first the field in the AFC. I'll take the field, but I don't know. I'd pick the Bills. I'd probably look for somebody other than the Kansas City, and I never say that about Mahomes.
Yeah, you know what? I'm done attempting to do that, Will, because last year, if they still made it through, even with, again, kind of the luck box nature of what this team has been this year, they still have looked more consistent this year than they did last year. And last year, without home field, they still won the Super Bowl with a team that I actually think was significantly less complete than this team currently. Look, when you rattle off all those wins in a row to begin the season and all these one-score games, yeah, you would expect it to revert the other way in close games at some point, but you can't do that. Look, you can't do that with top three quarterbacks in this league. It just doesn't work. We said that with Brady all the time. Look how that worked out for all of us trying to go against him all his whole career. And it's the same deal with Mahomes. I loved Carolina getting points today. I thought that line was nuts. That was one of the few things I did get right here on the Sunday, Will. But look, I still am not counting I still would think I'd rather have Kansas City at the number they have to win the AFC over anything. And look, I don't trust Buffalo to beat them in a playoff game until they actually beat them in a playoff game. I don't trust them. And you look at the rest of the AFC, Baltimore's defense is terrible. Pittsburgh's kind of been a luck box also, but I don't know. Their defense is real. What else? The Texans, you mentioned it. Look, the Ryans is a mess, by the way. I know it was a great story last year and so on and so forth. We figured Stroud would take a little bit of a step back because of just how outrageously good he was last year. So I'm not surprised he's taken a little bit of a step back. Of course, I'm not counting today, but not having Collins and Diggs and being down all those wide receivers did not help during the initial struggle for Stroud. But it feels like Ryans every single time that makes the decision that is the most possible conservative decision at every point in every game. Like today, he had 4th and 1 at midfield early in the game. He punted. He had 4th and 2. Again, Fairbairn made the 58-yard field goal in that one, but you still have a guy who's considered a top 10 quarterback, even though he's down. Trust your offense. And Ryan's done this all year. I thought he coached not to lose the game against Detroit. What happened? They lost that game. But look, Houston's still going to win that division. They're probably going to lose the playoff game this year. This team kind of reminds me of the 1920 Titans. If you like
the 2020 Titans.
Well, both those teams.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
So the Titans make the AFC title game in 2020. You expect them to come again. I didn't expect Houston. I expected Houston to be about a 10, 11, or at most 12-win team with in a horrible division and then not do anything in the playoffs this year. But the next year, even though Tennessee won the division, they were clearly worse than they were by the end of 2019 in that 2020 season. So we'll see. We'll see with them. I still think Stroud long-term will be fine. But again, you up your competition. Your offensive line sucks. That's really the big thing more so than Houston. They just have that offseason has to be 100% geared around improving the O-line moving forward to protect your key piece.
All right, 2 quick ones then. Chiefs first the field in the AFC.
What type of number you give me on Kansas City?
Even each way. No odds.
Oh, well, I mean, if it's minus 110 each way, I'll take the field.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Again, if you're giving me the actual the current numbers, I'm taking Kansas City over everyone. I didn't even get them at the point that I actually wanted to make there. Will, I think the Chargers are best set up to beat Kansas City in a playoff game.
I don't disagree.
But it's just so hard on your brain to be like, you're really gonna pick the Chargers, even though it's this is not our Chargers anymore. Will, This is the Jim Harbaugh smash the hell out of your opponent's head the whole game. Jim Harbaugh, where Herbert has played great since he's gotten healthy this year, and that defense is the best defense in football right now. So yeah, I think the Chargers have the best shot of beating Kansas City, but it's you have. For me, 31 years of my lifetime. For everyone else, the entire existence of that damn franchise to get over if you're going to bet them in a big game.
Lions versus the field to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, I'll take the field. I think Detroit, even though they should be the favorites, the Jared Goff playoff stink bomb still scares me as a potential here, Will.
You know what my hope is as a Vikings fan? My hope is they're the 98 Vikings. That's what I hope.
It's not impossible, right? Like I look again. I'm not old enough to remember the '98 Vikings, but the
Oh, I
'98.
am. Oh, Jesus.
I know you are, Will, but look, that still scares me with them. And here's the other weird thing that might have to pop up for Detroit. Detroit's going to very likely have to either play Minnesota or Green Bay a third time in the playoffs. And that, even though, look, we know the old saying, look, if I know people love betting. Oh, if they got swept during the regular season, bet them again and bet them in the third game. Sometimes it does work that the team is just a horrible matchup and they should beat them 3 times. But the way that both Green Bay and Minnesota are constructed, like Minnesota's defense is good enough to slow them down for one game and turn Goff over. It would just be a matter of can Darnold hold up for a game on the road in that scenario. And look, the pack this start for anyone who thinks the Packers are a legitimate Super Bowl threat, honestly might be a blessing in disguise for like betting purposes, Will, because Green Bay's kind of just floated under the radar here.
Totally
You
agree.
got people arguing that Malik Willis has been better than Jordan Love this year, which all right, whatever. Willis has played well, but come on, let's have a brain here for the people that are making that argument. And I think Green Bay's defense is so better equipped than they've been basically since I don't know. The year that I would guess the year they lost to Seattle almost to make a deep run at this point. Like even the team that lost to Tampa in the NFC title game, the team that lost to San Francisco the year after, the back-to-back Rodgers MVP years, this defense is really good and it's better coordinated than it's been over those years. So Green Bay is sneaky, man. They are very much alive in the end. Again, I think the NFC playoffs have the potential to be awesome, Will, because even though Detroit is the clear front runner, if you end up in a scenario with Philadelphia, the NFC West champ, I don't really care who it is, but I think they're more than capable of pulling an upset on the road, regardless of who it is. The the other two North teams, and then look, I know that people will probably laugh at this, but I think the Bucks are capable of winning a playoff game or two. Hell, the Bucks are the only team to beat Detroit this year so far. So, and I know people are like, "Wait a second, Tampa's 4, 5, and 6. What are you talking about?" Look at Tampa's schedule the rest of the year. It's the easiest schedule I think I've
sure
ever
is.
seen. And Atlanta, you really don't think Atlanta's capable of choking and going 9-8, and Tampa wins the division at 10-7? Like, there's more than enough possibility of that happening at this rate.
Yeah, and Atlanta's next 2 games, Chargers, then at Minnesota. So that division is far from over.
The division, like in 3 weeks, like it's possible at this
Absolutely. Rate. Monday night game here, Chargers Ravens, a good Monday night game. We just talked about the Chargers getting 2.5, 3, depending on where you shop. What do you like here?
I love the Chargers, man. I think this is a great matchup for them. Now, there is a desperation factor on Baltimore's end. Baltimore is Philadelphia next week after this, by the way. So this is a pretty ridiculous 3-day game stretch for the Ravens, where they go Pittsburgh and then the Chargers and the Eagles, who, again, I think the Eagles, I didn't even mention that in the NFC diatribe. I think Philly right now is every bit as good as anyone in that conference. But Sirianni is such a letdown when it's all said and done that I don't think they'll get through. But I like the Chargers because the physical look. This is the identities of these teams have flipped. Will, like the entire existence of Baltimore, of the Ravens being in Baltimore, has been their defense. Now their defense sucks. Their offense is awesome. Obviously, Lamar, it still I think should be the MVP of the league, even with the bad game last week. But the Chargers their defense is good. Their physical running attack on offense. Herbert has been much better since he's healthy. I like the two. I like Quentin Johnston finally looks like an NFL first round pick. McConkey's Wes Welker basically at this rate. This is a really good Charger team now that everyone is healthy again. I actually think this game should have came pick. So I very happily took the plus price with the Chargers and the +3 earlier in the week.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of the foundational pieces: coach, quarterback, defense, offensive line. The easiest thing to do is pick up weapons. Man, this team picks up weapons along the way. They might. It's crazy because they're in the same division.
Super Bowl now. I don't think they're going to win one this year, but You have a good offseason next year. That is a hell of a fight in the
Sure.
AFC West with them in Kansas City moving forward.
Very reminiscent to Har-bowl when he took over Michigan. He couldn't quite catch Ohio State, and he just kept creeping up, and then eventually beat him the last two or three times. So
Not only that, Will, just look at like Harbaugh's history in the NFC West. It was them in Seattle beating the hell out of each other for all those years.
All right, college football. Who is in? Who's out? What do you think you know? Because what a mess. The committee is in a situation where, man, they can basically just pick and choose, do whatever they want, pick whichever flavor of ice cream they want. They can screw whoever they can promote. I think Indiana's in, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia probably in. What are your thoughts here on the playoff after a crazy weekend?
The only three teams that I think are safe right now because of everything that's happened, and I just don't see a shot in hell of them losing this week, are Oregon, who I think, again, double revenge from Washington last year, and Washington's a shell of itself. Also, Washington's been the worst road team in the country this year, Will. So that's another thing, and that game's in Eugene. Ohio State's going to beat the hell out of Michigan this week. Like, I don't care that it opened 3 touchdowns. If you're telling me Ohio State isn't going to win this game 49-7, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think this is an absolute evisceration at the shoe they're in. And Penn State's going to get in. Those are the only 3 teams that I feel confident are definitely in right now. Because I don't see Penn State losing at home to Maryland. That's the type of team Franklin teams run it up on. So after that, I mean, look, it's really a freaking mess at this rate. Where, Will, I think Texas is going to lose to Texas A&M, which then puts a 3-loss A&M in the SEC title game, where Georgia's going to probably be about a 6-point favorite against A&M, maybe more in Atlanta. And then what do you do if you're what do you do? This is the scenario where I think the committee just has no chance. What do you do if Texas A&M beats Texas, gets to the SEC title game, and then Georgia beats them on a last-second field goal to win by 1, 2, or 3? What do you do if you're the committee? Like seriously, what do you do in that scenario? Like, you can't really put a 4-loss A&M team in.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Like you can't, but they in that scenario would have had a loss to a team that's going to host a playoff game in Notre Dame, a loss in the 2-point shootout to Auburn, which, again, A&M probably would have won that game if they just got in a 17-0 hole instead of a 21-0 hole. Yeah, they got whipped at South Carolina, but it just, I don't know. I think so as of this moment, just projecting out, Will, let me pull it up. I actually made this for the show on Monday, but I'll give you a quick sneak peek. Here's what I got right now, 1 through 12, projecting out what I think will happen the rest of the way, all right? I have Ohio State as the 1 seed because I have them winning the Big Ten. I have them beating Oregon in the rematch. I have Georgia at 2, winning the SEC. I have SMU at 3 because I have them winning the ACC title game over Miami, both at 11-1. Boise gets the 4 seed, even though I'm not overly convinced that Boise's better than Tulane at this point.
Me neither.
But Boise just had such an advantage because of how well they played early and the fact that they lost to Oregon by a field goal. Just really, they'll get in. Genty should win the Heisman, by the way, but that's a different discussion for a different time. Oregon 5, Penn State 6, Notre Dame 7, Texas 8. I have Indiana at 9. I think the committee should keep Indiana over Tennessee in the seeding. I don't think the Vols are really all that good. I mean, that Alabama win just keeps looking worse as it goes along. Georgia manhandled them. I think they're just a bunch of bullies, Tennessee, but 10-2 Tennessee's getting in. And then in the last at-large bit, I had Miami getting in because I think the committee, even though I don't think Miami is one of the 12 best teams if they were to lose the ACC title game, I think the committee is cognizant of all the noise that are around them. If they were to put a 9-3 Ole Miss or 9-3 Alabama, or in that scenario, or if A&M were to make the SEC title game, a 9-4 A&M over an 11-2 Miami, I just think that because of the
less of a headache.
Yeah, and it's wrong. I think Ole Miss is better than Miami. I still do, even with that loss to Florida yesterday. But they're 11. And then I have Arizona State winning the Big 12 and getting the 12 seed. I'm not so sure, and I tweeted this yesterday, and all the Big 12 people yelled at me. I'm not so sure Tulane doesn't deserve the bid over the Big 12
I
champion at
was
this
saying
point.
that too. I agree.
I mean, look, and the committee is a very easy out on that. Tulane's played 2 power conference teams this year. They lost to Kansas State at home by a touchdown, and Oklahoma really beat them up. So that's the easy way to keep Tulane out. But boy, Tulane's kicking the hell out of people right now. So I don't know. I don't know. Who knows with the Big 12? I mean, could end up with Texas Tech in the freaking Big 12 title game at this point, and that would be the farce of farces if that happened.
I wouldn't be shocked if Houston beats by BYU and Colorado finds their way.
Oh, look. I don't think Colorado. I don't think Colorado will lose to Oklahoma State because Oklahoma State's given up so far this year. I would be floored if BYU loses to Houston, but BYU was the luckiest team in all of college football to me the whole entire year. So to see them lose in 2 ridiculous fashions the last 2 weeks has kind of actually been nice for me. But look, anything's in play in that league. None of those teams are any good. And it's funny because the Big 12 people's argument is, wait a second, the same thing's happening in the SEC. Why are we saying those teams are good and the Big 12 isn't? Well, just watch the games. Just watch the games. Yeah, the SEC's down. There's no arguing that. There's a lot of teams that aren't quite as good as they've been in the past. There's a reason that we could end up with two-loss teams in the SEC title game in conference. But again, it's crazy year. I mean, I will say, if we were going off current form in the Big 12, Kansas is the best team in the conference right now. It's really not even close.
Yep. Last one on college football. Either Clemson or South Carolina, they play each other this week. Does the winner have a chance?
The only way I see Clemson getting in is if they win the ACC, which I will tell you, I don't see SMU losing at home to Cal. That would be nuts if that happened. But do we trust Miami to go on the road and win at the Dome against Syracuse?
No.
I don't. That game reeks of what happened to them at Georgia Tech. So Clemson's got a much better chance because if it's Clemson SMU in the ACC title game, I'd probably pick Clemson, honestly. I probably would because that would be a pure desperation factor for Clemson. And remember, this game doesn't matter for Clemson in the ACC run. Like Clemson could get whacked by South Carolina and make the ACC title game, then beat SMU, and then the whole thing's even more screwed up than it already.
But you don't think Clemson has an at-large shot?
No, who did they beat? They beat no one this year. Even with the win against South Carolina, they'd have 2 wins against both teams.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. But again, these teams keep losing, and they're a 2-loss team, and I don't know. They've got some brand value with them.
I think that's a stretch. Boy,
probably.
I'd actually want the committee to put in in that scenario. I'd almost like the committee to put Tulane in as an at-large almost.
I thought about that too. Yep, I thought about that.
I mean, I'd almost like that over that at that point.
What is Bama? What's Bama's scenario here?
Bama's done.
Okay.
They're not making it. I would not be shocked if they lose on Saturday to Auburn. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Auburn's been unbelievably unlucky all year. They finally got a break, even in a game that they did their best to blow against A&M. But I'll say this, and I really at this point, the only quarterback prospect that I think will be good in the NFL is Sanders from this year's draft class. Anyone takes Ewers in the top 10, they get what they deserve on that. If you're taking Jalen Milroe, forget the top 10. If you're taking Jalen Milroe in the first round, what the hell are we doing here? Oklahoma's game plan is exactly what everyone should have been doing all year. You are not getting any runs over 5 yards against us. Beat us with your arm because you can't. And what happened? 2 pick sixes later. Good night, adios. Your season's over.
Last one. Where is Juan Soto going to be playing
come April? He will be playing for the New York Mets when it is all said and done. Now, the only other team that makes any sense is the Yankees. Save me with the nonsense with the Dodgers. It's not happening. It's not happening with Philly. Not happening with Toronto. It is a 2-horse race.
You're not buying the Red Sox either. I don't buy this Red Sox.
Come on. When was the last time the Red Sox decided to spend money? Let's be real here. And not happening. That would be an interesting fit, though.
Him and Devers in that ballpark, yeah, that would
I
not be
mean,
bad.
I didn't forget it. Garrett Cole would never want to pitch against the Red Sox again, probably. But I think he ends up with the Mets. I just think when it's all said and done, and this is not a shot at Hal, the Steve Cohen's not going to get outbid here. And I think that money is going to play a little more of a role than we would expect with this, Will. Where I think Cohen is going to give him like 670 for 13 years when it's all said and done. And look, the Yankees will be over 600 million. In the end, I think Cohen will end up outbidding him and Soto ends up in blue and orange. That's what I think happens.
I'm like 51. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll tell you this, if Soto ends up in blue and orange, the Yankees should give Pete Alonso whatever he wants. Because Pete Alonso would hit 50 home runs in Yankee Stadium if he went there.
Yeah, but that's another guy. He's right-handed. He's slow. He's bad defensively. To me, it's Soto, and there is no plan B.
Will, I will tell you, I don't think he's bad defensively anymore.
Okay.
He is vastly improved as a defender over the last 3 years.
Well, you know what? If he's so good defensively, you can keep him with the Mets, and we'll keep Soto.
We'll get ready for opening day. Look, the dream for me is that Soto and Alonso stay, or Soto comes and Alonso stays. But I just at some point, even though Cohen's pockets are endless, like at some point they gotta empty it. They gotta be like, all right, let's be a little more rational. Even though it's funny, the Mets moved so far this offseason, but like classic David Stearns. Like go out, go sign a bunch of bullpen guys who are terrible, who have good stuff that might end up being good, and then trade a guy who we know can't pitch for Jose Siri, who cannot hit at all, but is an amazing defensive outfielder. So it has been a very classic David Stearns start to the Mets offseason so far.
That's what worries me about Soto going to the Mets, and that's what makes me think maybe there's some smoke, is that Soto in Siri and Soto would be a perfect outfield combination because Siri can just kind of get everything and make up for the ground that Soto can't cover. And Soto's a terrible defensive player.
Well, that I agree with you on, but you also, again, Gold Glove finalist Juan Soto this year, Will.
No, he wasn't. Was he really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. That's a joke. He stinks in the outfield.
Yes. Just another one where, again, a lot of these people who claim they cover baseball every day don't watch the games. But
he's a butcher. He's horrible. He's either a DH or a first baseman going forward. 2-3 years from now, maybe he plays the outfield for a little bit. He's horrible in the outfield.
I would have no problem with Soto as the DH moving forward for the Mets. And then you actually have more roster. Well, if he's capable of playing the outfield about 65 games a year, you actually have some roster flexibility at that point. But I don't know. I did like the Siri trade for the Mets, even though I did not realize how Siri basically struck out on like 40% of his at-bats last year. It was really bad. Also, well, one more baseball note before we get out of here, I know. Can we talk about for a second how 2 Major League Baseball teams are going to be playing in minor league parks for the foreseeable future right now? Like, we're off arguably the best baseball season in God knows how long.
Great season.
Like, just everything about it was great. You have the 2 biggest brands in the sport played in the World Series, and the ratings were through the roof, with arguably the 4 to 6 best players in baseball in that series as well. And your reward the year after that is, the A's are playing in Sacramento and the Rays are playing in the Yankees spring training facility. Like, what are we doing here as a league? Like, I know the A's thing is a cluster to begin with, and I could talk about that for 3 hours. But everything that's gone on with Tampa, like, why are we even bothering having them play in Tampa this year? Like,
what would you do?
The stadium deal's dead. Like, the new stadium deal's dead. Just get the new city on the line and move them at this point. Like, move them to Montreal like they were planning to do that stupid split a few years ago. Move them to Nashville. Like, Tampa's proven they can't handle. And also, while we're at it, just move the Marlins out of Miami, even though I know that will never happen.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the 2 factor. I knew like Tampa. I knew like separately that Tampa's playing in the Yankees minor leaguer, and I knew the A's, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like, yeah, that is kind of weird that we have 2 2 major league teams. It is
horrible. It's horrible, Will. It's just it's minor league crap from a league that should be turning the corner right now. Like, that's the moment. This year, this 2024 postseason should be the turning point for for
I
Major
agree.
League Baseball to get back. Again, they're never going to catch the NFL. We know that.
I think they might have
But
caught the NBA quietly too, which nobody seems to want to admit with all the load management. Like if you look
Will,
at the ratings for the NBA Finals versus the World Series, I think the World Series actually did better. It's kind of a dirty little secret, but I think baseball might be nudging ahead of them, the NBA, which is to me completely destroyed their season. I don't get into this midseason tournament, this cup,
forget the
all of these
midseason.
gimmicks. It's too much for me.
Forget the midseason tournament. You have one superstar who has decided that the games don't matter anymore and refuses to play. That's all you need to know about the sport right now. So, look, you're in a scenario where, look, I think if you're Major League Baseball, you got to turn the corner and take that number 2 slot back permanently. And they have enough talent in the league right now in order to do that well.
Jeff, a lot of fun, man. Appreciate the time. Let everyone know they can find you.
Yeah, Sports by the Book is the show. This week's a little bit different. Just throw this out there. The Bookmakers Show, myself, Chris Andrews, Vinny Maliola, Jimmy Vaccaro, this week at 5 o'clock Eastern on Sports by the Book. That's Sports by the Book on YouTube, where you can watch the show, and we'll get you ready for the final week of college football in the regular season and, Thanksgiving NFL. 1.5 reasonable games, right? The Giants and Cowboys isn't a game. Caleb Williams looked good today other than overtime. Like, that's okay. Bears and Lions, and then Packers and Dolphins finally has some juice since the Dolphins have beaten the heck out of some bad teams in a row. Well,
yeah, as a Viking fan, I will have what's a random Chicago Bear? I will have my Curtis Conway jersey on, rooting on the Bears on Thanksgiving.
Curtis Conway, nice.
All right, man. Appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Will.
All right, rate, review, subscribe. That'll do it for today. We will be back Wednesday. A lot of football, basketball, a lot to discuss, man. What a week of sports. Enjoy. Thanks to Jeff Parles. See you then.